The Godly Green Tomato. Our story is about a tomato. Yes, a tomato. Our certain little green tomato was a very joyful small green tomato. And like all young green tomatoes, early on in her life, she dreamt of one day becoming a big red tomato and doing all the grown-up things that red tomatoes did that she wasn't allowed to do yet. This particular green tomato lived with her family on a little branch, on a less little branch, of a slightly bigger branch, on an even more bigger branch, that were all on a ginormous tomato plant. The little green tomato was part of a normal happy family who lived amongst all the other tomatoes on the tomato plant that they all called the family tree. Her mum and dad, 2 older brothers and an older sister, were all red tomatoes, and her younger green brother was just starting to turn slightly orange. She knew that soon her younger brother would be red, and she was worried just like all the green tomatoes are, that she would lose him forever to the inevitable redness that all tomatoes seem to develop into, and for some reason that made her feel very, very sad and very confused. Now, tomatoes love the sun. They are naturally drawn to the light, and this green tomato is no exception. At dawn each day, without question, she and all the other tomatoes would be ready to devote to the sun, and every day all the tomatoes would be rewarded as the sun's warmth embraced and reassured their hearts, bringing readiness to everyone around them. Now, you may or may not know that tomato is a relative of the nightshade family. There are some of them now, including the infamous deadly nightshade, who live down there. We should probably avoid them, at least for the time being. They're not called deadly for nothing, and they oddly don't like the sun. They should probably be called deadly dayshade, shouldn't they? We had better be careful, because they don't have a sense of humour either. Anyway, depending on which tomato plant they came from, all the red tomatoes believe that they're all part of the family tree that they were born in, the tomato family tree that they all lived together on was to be revered and respected, to be looked up to. Everyone believed that the family tree was the source of all life and knowledge for all the tomatoes, and of course, every tomato tree thought the same thing. It made sense after all, doesn't it? As all the things for survival, food, water and shelter come from the tree itself. It felt safe to the red tomatoes to believe this, and so without question, most if not nearly all of them did. And as they sat in the sun drinking and smoking and eating and talking nonsense, and getting redder and redder, strangely fatter and fatter, dafter and dafter, madder and madder, unhappier and happier, and of course angrier and angrier, and therefore even redder and redderer, the bemused young green tomato would look on in horror and simply just wonder how horrible it must be to be a red tomato, to be a rotten tomato. In fact, she dreaded becoming one. She was very confused. What a pointless and meaningless life, cried the green tomato to herself. Surely there must be more to life than this. As confusion overwhelmed her, she felt her heart torn apart, releasing a pip shed from a falling tear. The green tomato knew that one day she would probably have to redden up and be like everyone else. When she was feeling down and disheartened, she would sometimes think that she was starting to get an ever so slight tinge of orange. But she didn't want to be like them, the red tomatoes that is. So she would shade under a leaf and think of only good green thoughts until all consideration of redness had passed. For some reason, decisively, even at this young age, she knew in the pips of her core that she should not listen to the red tomatoes. So instead just went about her own life, secretly hoping and dreaming that one day they would all just change back and somehow remember how being green was. She was decisive about that. So one day, well before she was an adult tomato, she came to the realization that when she looked around, green was a colour that nature particularly seemed to embrace. So she decided decisively that she would always stay a green tomato. She didn't want to go red. She would stay a green tomato forever. Stay green, stay green, stay green, she decisively willed herself. Now you may be thinking that all tomatoes go from green to red, so she doesn't have much choice in the matter anyway, does she? Well, it turns out that as time passed by, as the inquisitive green tomato grew older, these feelings were enhanced. As resiliently she learnt the rules and sort of managed to fool everyone, including herself for a while. She would get teased or embarrassed and turn red. Sometimes she would get in a fight or fall over and get bruised and have patches of red that seemed to allow her to fit in. And of course, all red tomatoes want to fit in, to be picked, to be chosen. Pick me, pick me, pick me, like all the red tomatoes shout out when they are on display. Imagine the pressure to be under to be red if you're a green tomato. There is so much pressure when you're growing up to be ready for the world, so eventually the resilient green tomato looked for enhancements to herself as she made ready her makeup was applied on her outside only, to ready her face with readiness. More and more her makeup was coated on, until she felt she was ready to her face the world, and resiliently over the course of time, of course, it became like a mask. Her makeup, make up a red mask. And we all wear masks metaphorically, don't we? And of course nowadays they apply wax on tomatoes, don't they? So that they look younger and their appearance will stay the same. Continue to stay the same, to last longer. The longing inside, she began to take on the appearance almost of a wax model. Her sheer face looked on the appearance of a wax model, you know, the ones you see at the wax museum, taking on a resilient waxy appearance. An almost unnatural appearance, unnatural in that it appears that the tomato had almost forgotten who she really was. Deep inside, it's difficult to know what's inside unless you're prepared to look at who you are, really are. The resilient tomato thought to herself one day as she realised that she wasn't sure what was inside anymore. And now that she was fully red, she didn't need to go outside anymore. She dreaded going outside anymore. There was no point. She was already ripe for the picking. The deadly nightshade sensed her coming apart. As the hand of darkness, the resilient tomato was living in the hand of darkness, living inside of herself, living in darkness. Her ready, resilient makeup had made it difficult to partake outside. The heartache inside, it made no sense, nonsense. Her essence made no sense. As the years passed, and remembering the pip she had once shed, she began looking closely to her own young family, remembering her past. Confusion, decisive, resilient. Looking at her own innocent young green tomato, she recalled herself from before. Before she had almost forgotten. The pip she had shed so many years ago was now her young, budding, joyful green tomato that oddly filled our tomato with envy. Green with envy, as she now. No, the thing about envy is that when you envy your own loved ones, your inner cognitive conflict will resolve this particular turmoil, allowing your dissonance to work itself out in a positive, joyful ways. So one day the tomato nervously looked outside of herself again. First she stepped out a little bit, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more. Sometimes she would step back a little, but that didn't last long. She bravely stepped out again a little further. Further. I want to see the light again, she told herself, looking up at the cloudy sky above. And so she began to climb up the tomato tree. Up she went, higher and higher. Quicker and quicker. Upper and upper, faster and faster, until she burst through the dark clouds into the blazing sun, returning joyfully to the light. At last the whole of her was in the light from the sun shining down on her. The wax melted off, her whole makeup dissolved off, disintegrated as she integrated, her appealing unpeeling, revealing her greenness underneath as her coating liberated her part apart, to be a sight to behold again, as she once again embraced the warmth of the light radiating on her from her. She was green again. Closing her eyes, she allowed herself to fall, the fall from gracefully putting her whole faith in salvation. Down she fell through the clouds. Whee! So here she is today, our original little green tomato, looking joyfully red? Well, let's explain. During that long drop, she plunged down so fast that she blazed downwards like a fiery meteor, causing her skin tone to tan a beautiful scorched red. On the outside, to her family, she looks the same, but they somehow, we all know, she isn't the same inside.